lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Hey, everybody that's able, please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, President Judy.
Well, thank you, Dave. As I said, today we have a great speaker. He's our NAR 2020 president, Vince Malta. While Vince Malta is speaking, please use the Q&A function on your screen to submit any questions for him. At the end of his presentation, he will try to answer as many of those questions as possible during the time he has available. Vince Malta, a realtor in San Francisco, California, is the 2020 president of the National Association of Realtors. Vince is a third-generation realtor and the CEO and broker of Malta & Company, Inc. Vince has been in the real estate business for 43 years and has served the industry in countless roles. On the national level, Vince has testified before Congress multiple times on behalf of NAR on issues such as the impact of increasing conforming loan limits, insurance reform, and housing policy. He has served on the NAR Board of Directors from 2002 to present and was the 2010 and 2011 Vice President of Government Affairs. Since 1988, Vince has been deeply involved with the California Association of Realtors. In 2002, he became an honorary state director for life, and in 2006, CAR elected him as president. He was awarded Realtor of the Year for the state of California in 2007. He is a graduate of the University of San Francisco and the University of San Francisco School of Law. Now here's President Vince.
Thank you, President Judy, and hello all from San Francisco. I'm glad to be able to talk with my friends in the capital city, despite our social distancing constraints, as we navigate an unprecedented global health crisis day by day, moment by moment. NAR's message, first and foremost, is to please take care of yourself and your family. That's of our paramount importance. These past weeks have been the most tumultuous and emotional that any of us can remember. The COVID-19 outbreak deeply affects all of us. It has changed how we run our businesses, how we keep our loved ones close, and how we stay connected to our communities. As an industry of extroverts and connectors, it goes against our grain to practice social distancing. We're the folks who literally bring people together to achieve their dream of property ownership. But realtors have always adapted to change, and we're doing so again now. I'm very proud to see realtors stepping up, offering virtual showings, adjusting contracts to allow more time for appraisals and inspections, and helping clients and customers understanding their options and how they're affected by this crisis. You have your clients and customers back. And today I want to assure you that NAR has your back. Your well-being and your business are, again, of great importance to me, the NAR leadership team, our CEO, Bob Goldberg, and the NAR staff at this unprecedented time. I have to say, never have I seen so much done by a trade organization so quickly for its membership. We did a total shift in our priorities. And as I go over things today, you're going to see what we're doing on an advocacy level for you and as an association with association benefits. So, as I said, regarding advocacy, we're fighting on your behalf in Washington. As you know, Congress passed and the president signed a $2 trillion relief bill. It's the largest economic impact stimulus package in American history. The CARES Act contains numerous benefits for realtors that NAR sought or fought hard for during the past several weeks. It includes unemployment eligibility and the self-employed and independent contractors who are not usually covered under traditional state unemployment benefit programs. It includes unprecedented aid, nearly $350 billion in loans for small businesses that could be used for mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and payroll costs. And some of those loans are forgivable. It includes an employee retention tax credit, and it includes a delay in business payroll tax payments. So it's quite comprehensive. And I'm sure we're going to get some questions as to how those things are implemented and how they may affect you directly and how you would apply. In addition, the CARES Act, borrowers of government-backed securities can request up to 360 days of payment forbearance without proof of hardship and without penalties. So this applies to you for those people having difficulty making payments and for your clients. As you'll see, this is a great time to retool yourself regarding educational opportunities, but it's also a very important time for you to reach out to your client base. And many people just can't comprehend what's going on and how they can take advantage of some of the programs here to help them through this crisis. And that is a huge one. So if they have a government-backed loan, they can have up to 1 year in forbearance of payments. And we could talk more about how that's being done. Some people I hear are told that they have, let's say, those payments will be due in a certain period of time. But what you're seeing at the government, if they're government-backed loans, those payments are tacked on to the end of the loan. And I'd say interest-free. They're not, so those payments are just due at the end of the loan. So the loan, in a sense, gets extended. Also, eligible multifamily property owners with federally insured loans can request forbearance of loans for 30 days and under financial hardships with extensions of a total up to 90 days. So there's relief there. So as you see, the bill goes a long way to help people until the economy can get going again. And NAR continues to work with lawmakers to bring even more industry relief. We're advocating for national access to remote online notary service. So remote closings can take place in all 50 states, including California, and extensions of the 1031 exchange and opportunity zone timeframes. So it's very important that we get pending transactions closed. And so we're very mindful of that and are working in various departments to make sure these things can happen. We all know that real estate is a huge economic driver. It represents nearly 10 million jobs and makes up about 17% of our economy. The federal government agrees, and real estate is critical to the US economy. In fact, the Department of Homeland Security and the Infrastructure Security Agency, called CISA, last week updated its list of essential services to include residential and commercial real estate and settlement services. NAR's effective and persistent advocacy and collaboration with other trade groups helps show that people who make a real estate transaction happen, from procurement to lending, appraisal to closing, and everything in between, are critical to America's infrastructure. Here in California, real estate has been declared an essential service. But those states still trying to get this essential designation can point to these federal guidelines. Again, they are guidelines, they're not mandates. Fortunately, California deems it essential. But it's not a guarantee that the state government will agree, but again, it's a big help. So regardless of whether real estate services are essential, realtors have the special responsibility and mandate to take all necessary health and safety precautions, including those ordered by your state or locality, whichever are more strict. Those precautions may include holding no in-person showings, limiting all other in-person activity, and of course, observing social distancing guidelines set forth by the CDC. So even if certain real estate services are deemed essential, we strongly encourage you to practice virtual showings and limit in-person activity in all other aspects of the transaction to better protect you and our communities. We have an obligation to protect our fellow citizens, as our top priority. Another bit of news is that FEMA, the agency, recently announced it will extend the grace period to renew flood insurance policies from 30 to 120 days. If a policy expires between February 13th and June 15th of this year, the policyholder must provide the renewal premium within 120 days of the expiration date to avoid a lapse in coverage. From essential services to the stimulus package, information is coming to us at a breakneck speed every day. And so we ask that, that you look at some of these updates of these programs. Now I can go over them with you, but it will be outdated by this time next week. So I ask you to go online to look at some of this information. Go to nar.realtors/CARES Act. Go to that regularly and see the updates. You could find a growing list of FAQs at nar.realtors/coronavirus hyphen FAQ. Again, that's nar.realtors/coronavirus FAQ. Also, please join me and other NAR leaders in our advocacy staff tomorrow, Wednesday, April 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific time for Leadership Live, a Facebook Live event held at NAR's Facebook page. So hopefully you can join us on that, and it'll be an interactive event, and we'll be answering hopefully a lot of your questions. NAR is committed to putting members first, and we're also here to support you and your business during these times. So as some of you may recall, in 2009, in the recession, we had a program called Right Tools, Right Now. And if there's ever a time that you need your trade association, this is the time. So like in 2009, we're rolling out a lot of programs and services for you at a discount or free right now. The program is called Right Tools, Right Now. And so it is things that you'll see online, such as educational courses, webinars, such as financial tips during the challenging times, a business survival guide, ePro certification courses, which help realtors master advanced digital marketing techniques, and the 2020 Technology Trends webinar. There are also free commercial courses in financial modeling, leasing, and use of market data on there as well. So, go online, nar.realtors/right tools right now, so that you could look at what's available. Also, very importantly, again, regarding your health and the health of your communities, NAR is rolling out a program called Members Telehealth. And NAR is funding over the next 2 months this program for members who currently don't have access to telemedicine and who enroll by this program by April 15th could go online and enroll. And you will have access to telemedicine around the clock to 2,300 US state licensed and board certified physicians who are specially trained to treat non-emergency medical issues through phone, tablet, or computer. Enrollees in the NAR plan can pay no copay, no enrollment fee, and doctor consultations are unlimited. We thought this very important so we could keep you out of doctor's offices and medical facilities so that you could have diagnoses at home. Of course, if you're suffering from something more serious, hopefully they can diagnose that and then you can go in. But hopefully this will save lives. And again, this is available to you for 2 months at no cost. Just enroll by April the 15th. And if you want to stay on, because of your membership with NAR, you can stay on at a reduced cost beyond the 2-month period. So hopefully some of you will make use of that by going online and availing yourself of that program. So we also have other programs available to you, such as our Center for Financial Wellness. Realtors are different than employees in how we deal with our retirement. And so there's some great courses online in relation to that. Again, I would ask that you would look at other tools to retool yourself during this time that some of you are at home. go on to our Commitment to Excellence program, and it's known as C2EX. And it's a way that realtors can demonstrate their commitment to professionalism in conducting the highest of business standards. And it's built around 10 competency areas, such as data privacy, customer service, code of ethics, advocacy, and technology. So please check that out at c2ex.realtor. Get your certification, get it started. And I think that you'll find that very useful so that we can better serve our members at the other end of this when this pandemic is over. Also, in response to the pandemic, NAR is extending the consumer advertising campaign, voice and messaging to highlight realtors' connection to their communities, so that you'll find 3 brand new social assets with this messaging that you can share in your feeds. What we can do is, one of the messages I believe is, we're stronger together even though we are apart. So I think that these messages, I think, will be very good and resonate with consumers. And you could add some of this to your social media by signing up to a program called photify.com/NAR. So you could take some of those resources and include banners, et cetera, with your content on social media. And I think that that'll be great to do some joint branding. Now, if all of this is really confusing, we have something else that I think could be very useful. And that's a 1-800 number, so that many of you could just call in at 1-800-874-6500. Again, 1-800-874-6500 to help you with any COVID-19 related questions that you may have. So that support line is available between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. So hopefully that's another resource that will be of help to you. And then again, if you just have one URL to remember in relation to the coronavirus, go to nar.realtor/coronavirus, and you'll find a host of information there relating to this and how it relates to your profession, your business, and to property owners. So in conclusion, I'd like to say, one, you're a realtor, you're part of a team, and we're a team. No matter how distant we are from each other physically, no matter what crisis we're facing, and my goodness, we've weathered quite a few. Some of us have been around long enough in this business to remember 9/11, the Great Recession, and now this is just our latest adversity. We'll get through it by sharing information and by following proper health protocols for our customers and clients and ourselves. A lot remains uncertain, but one thing is for sure: this will pass, and our communities and our nation will recover, and we will emerge stronger on the other side of this. In the meantime, know that the Realtor team has your back, and there's no other team I'm more honored to be a part of than this team with you. So I ask all of you to be well, and I thank you. So with that, Madam President, if your members have any questions, I'll be happy to go over anything that they want to talk about this morning.
Good morning, Vince. This is Kelly, President-elect here at SAR. Thanks again for being here this morning and for the update. We do have a couple of questions from our attendees. The first question, we're hoping maybe you just have some guidance, or maybe you've heard of things on the federal level, but one of our members mentioned that the bank where they hold their business account has met the threshold and is not doing any of the PPP loans, and they're saying they can't go to another bank because they're requiring a business account. Have you heard of this similar hardship elsewhere, and do you have any suggestions for a solution?
So yes, I have heard this. So one bank in particular, Wells Fargo, has maxed out on their cap, and a lot of people have existing relationships with Wells and other banks that are meeting their cap. And so what's happened is a lot of the lending institutions have applied for some of their small businesses in advance and in anticipation of this. So they've already got so many people in their queue. So a couple of things. Senator Marco Rubio, who's one of the authors of this portion of the CARE Act, is well aware of this. The Secretary Treasurer knows this as well, the Treasurer Secretary. and they're going to look for additional funds. I think the number I've heard was 200 billion additional funds on top of the 349 billion that have already been allocated for this. So we'll have more money coming, but make sure you're ready to get into the queue. Now, there was never the intention to have this tied to having an existing relationship with an SBA bank, et cetera. So I would ask them to contact other lenders, which I know is a tall order because they're all backlogged. The other thing that's confusion is the guidelines are really not that clear at this point. Many of these SBA loans are not being rolled out until Friday of this week, until more guidelines are coming up. So stay tuned. We are aware of that situation, and we'll have more guidance online on those links that I provided you. So it's a moving target.
Thank you so much. That was great information for our membership. The second question we have for you, Vince, and deals with small mom and pop multifamily owners. You mentioned that there's the 30-day reprieve on forbearance up to 90 days for their mortgage if they have a hardship. And as you know, tenants actually have quite a bit longer to hold off on making their rent payments to those owners. Do you know if Congress is considering an extension of that type for these type of property owners?
So we're bringing that to our attention because, yes, it's a very good question, because what's happening is that sometimes the tenants could hold out in some of these local communities. Let's say San Francisco, they're drafting, I think, ordinances to protect tenants for up to 1 year of not having to pay rent under certain circumstances. So imagine the situation there. Now understand that these are forbearance agreements and there are eviction controls in a lot of these things. So we're asking Congress to look at these dates again so that they could better match up, because many property owners, many mom and property owners, as you bring up, cannot hold off 6 months or a year beyond what they're allowed under their forbearance agreements. And even the forbearance agreement that I was talking about, if you have a federally backed mortgage under one of these multi-unit properties, on one of these multi-unit properties, they have eviction controls in it as well. So if you avail yourself to these programs, you cannot commence any evictions. So I think that you'll see us working towards getting those timing both of those programs to mesh so that they can match up.
Great, thank you so much. We have a question here from a broker who is having a little trouble on how to advise their agents. We've got, as you know, so many different local ordinances as far as whether or not you're considered essential. Here in Sacramento, where we are, we're still not considered essential. I know you guys just have that lifted in San Francisco. But here we've got someone who says, you know, we've got photographers going in and out of properties, and yet agents who hold the license aren't able to do that. Do you have any advice for how this broker can talk to his agents about, you know, keeping the local ordinance in place and how to do business in that manner? Okay, so every situation is different. It's like real estate is unique, and so are these situations. So let's say you're not deemed essential. That means no personal showings. Okay, that means complying with the CDC and social distancing. So if you want a seller, if you have a seller that wants to sell their property, you're going to have to tell him or her or them that they're going to have to do virtual showings of the properties. Okay, that means that they can't be there. So imagine having a shelter-in-place order where the sellers, okay, are in the property, and you're trying to conduct all of these things. You're going to have to conduct them in a way of looking at the CDC guidelines to make sure that they're not put in jeopardy. I've seen agents, okay, put on masks, gloves, booties when entering a property if they're trying to meet with a seller personally, either to take video. And I've had some instances where the agent provided tools for the sellers to create that video so that they could show those properties online. So it's going to have to vary on a, if you're dealing with a seller, let's say that's elderly,
that is more susceptible to this, then it may not be prudent to go onto the property and do some of these things. So again, it's on a case-by-case situation. So again, we're encouraging people to use virtual tools in every way possible to get us through this. And keep in mind that we don't want to be part of the problem in the spread of this disease. We want this over as quickly as possible. So if we could do these good practices, in some instances, it may be putting off inspections. We can get to the other side of this again a lot quicker. So very difficult in the short run, but in the long run, I think people will remember us for what we do and we do not do during this time.
Great advice. Thank you so much. We have a question here about repercussions if homeowners take advantage of the forbearance of their mortgage. Specifically, there are maybe some mortgage holders out there who can continue to make payments even if they have been affected by COVID-19 or have not been affected by COVID-19. What would you suggest? What sort of things should that homeowner take into account? Are there going to be any repercussions for them if they take advantage of a forbearance, even if they maybe don't need to?
So that's a great question, and a lesson that we learned from during the Great Recession in 2009, because we're going to get over this and we have to look at our industry. What is it going to look like on the other side of this? And we don't want people's damage, people's credit damaged as a result of this. Look, the federal government put our economy in a self-induced coma, okay? This is not the fault of homeowners and borrowers. So we want to make sure that their credit is preserved on the other end of this. Now, having said that, these forbearance agreements are not automatic. They will not have, you have to apply for them. Please tell your customers, your clients, don't do nothing. Do something if they're having trouble. So make sure that they're contacting their servicers of these loans for these forbearance agreements. And I've heard a myriad of things where some of them have said, okay, we'll give you a break and you're going to have to start making that payment up after 90 days. Well, that's not really going to help them very much, is it? So the federal government has shown what they're doing with their loans, but not all loans are federally backed. Some loans are even private, and then you're held to whatever the private lender is going to do with your loan. Some of those loans are owned in-house by these lending institutions. They have great flexibility as to what they could do. So again, work out these forbearance agreements, know what they're getting into. Now, if there are some really egregious things that are asked for, let's hear about those so that we can get some response to that, because the federal government really wants to make sure that people's credit is preserved at the other end of this, so that their credit's not tarnished and we can resume business somewhat as usual after this. So it's very important.
Great reminder. Thank you for addressing that. Just as a quick reminder to our membership, there was someone who asked a question. You know, we've got relief that you discussed with payment forbearance for homeowners. Can you just touch on quickly, Vince, some of the relief that's being offered to tenants out there?
Well, eviction controls, there's no evicting of tenants for non-payment of rent related to the COVID-19. But I'm going to tell you that a lot of them deal with what's going on with local government. So I would ask, what is Sacramento doing for their tenants that directly affect your members? Because I don't want what we're doing in San Francisco will not necessarily apply to Sacramento. But at the federal level, if you avail yourself of these forbearance agreements on a multi-unit, you will not be allowed to evict your tenants for a period of time as well. So I believe that's up to 90 days under the federal law. So, but again, we're going to try to get these to mesh better, because we know that some of these local governments are really extending it out, and some property owners can't hold out that long.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to the member who asked that question, make sure you're also tuning into our SAR Facebook page, because we've talked at length about things that are happening here in Sacramento County that affect our landlords as well as our tenants, and relief that's available to both. So make sure you're checking those videos that we've posted to our SAR Facebook page. Let's see.
And as a practical matter, so what I'm doing is the tenants that are not paying me in April, I'm out there contacting them, and I'm working out these forbearance agreements with them, asking them what is it that they will need to move forward. And all of the agreements that I've made are different. Some of them can pay after 90 days, either installments. So let's say if their rent is $3,000 a month, okay? And they want to pay it over the next 6-month period, starting in August or something, I'll let them pay an additional $1,000 on to their normal rent over a 6-month period. Some just need to get through a hump, and they will make a double payment in some future time. So there's no fixed way of doing it. It's, but again, I'm reaching out to my tenants in a caring manner and working this out. Again, people will remember us for what we do and how we react to this with them. And so if they need help, I'm trying to provide that and get them through this. But reminding them that it's not rent forgiveness. It's just helping them put off their payments to a future date.
Thank you for that reminder. I know especially since you're from San Francisco, Vince, I'm sure you're familiar with the movement not too far away from you, from some people moving into vacant homes and trying to claim them as their own. We saw a recent similar situation here just happen in Sacramento. Are you seeing or hearing about this in other states? And what is NAR doing to work on ways to protect instances like this, to protect our private property rights?
So we're not seeing this in other parts of the country, okay? But we're really more mindful of our messaging. I mean, when you say that everyone should have the right to own a home, that in light of that statement, in light of how people want to portray that, we're making sure and mindful of our messaging that we're not advocating that people take over properties. That there is a fundamental right to home ownership. Fundamental right is there's a right to home ownership for those that want to take on the responsibility of home ownership, okay, and that are willing and able. And so that's very important. We learned that through the last crisis, that we wanted to make sure that home ownership was sustainable. So it was sustainable home ownership. So we're not advocating, and if you hear any right to home ownership from NAR, we're looking to change our messaging so that people don't infer that we're providing the right that people could just take over properties. We believe fundamentally in the right private property rights, but that is taking it to the level that we never intended.
Yes, it definitely is. Thank you. Do you have just a couple more minutes, Vince? At what time do we need to sign off with you here?
It's up to you. I don't want to take too much time of your agenda, but please feel free if you have other questions that your members have.
Great, thank you. I think we have you slotted for another, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. So if you're okay, we'll field another few questions your direction. Wondering if you've had any suggestions for agents helping their buyers do a final walkthrough for vacant homes. We've heard of some situations where the home is occupied, the seller going in and providing a video to the buyer as a walkthrough alternative. Have you heard of any good alternatives for those of us who still need to shelter in place on completing a buyer walkthrough in a vacant home?
Right, and so we have some tools available to you on our website. Mabel Guzman, Vice President of our Association Affairs, has done a video on some of that, and I've had them look. We want to make sure that we keep distancing from our clients. Our clients are probably distanced from us when we're doing these things. Mabel goes to the vacant property, takes out her phone, and her clients are at the comfort of their home, okay? And they're looking at the video live that Mabel is doing for the client. talking with them and saying, what else would they like to see? So again, if there's any silver lining on all of this, is that it's making our members utilize virtual tools more than they ever would have, okay? Clients are demanding it. They demanded it really before all of this. So if we become more compliant in all of this, great. So I think you'll find a lot of creative tools that people are using on these virtual things. So we're really recommending in-person showings not happen for your protection. And I've actually seen some communities where they're aware of these activities going on and they're reporting them to the police and agencies. Don't be a part of that. You know, respect the orders that are going on, and there are ways that you can get around this. Go to the CDC site. They can show you the protective gear that could be employed so that you are not out of compliance in some of these orders that are in effect.
Thank you. Let's see, first this member is saying thanks to you and to the whole NAR leadership team and staff for everything that you're doing for realtors and around the country. You're a great team leader right now. And this member would like to know, on a personal level, as an avid baseball fan, how are you handling the lack of baseball right now?
So, I've been using a lot of baseball analogies, all through the year. And I guess the big baseball analogy is we missed opening day, but there'll be a time when we're all going to be together in a ballpark watching baseball again, as we will be together practicing our profession after all of this. And so I look forward to that time. So it's only temporary. I'm not one of those people that will sit down and look at old footage of games, and that's what some people are doing. I'm trying to plan for the future. I want to help get our members through this with a great team that we have, and just retool. That's how I'm going to use it. And so we'll be back with baseball. We'll be back with real estate very soon. Let's just get past this very soon. I'm looking forward. I think the order for us in San Francisco is May the 3rd is the last day. Let's hope that is the case in getting past this. And I think we're very proud in California thus far. It's too early to say anything, please understand, but California is faring very well because we're behaving. And I hope that continues.
That actually speaks to one of our other questions here. Is NAR adjusting their suggestions and advice based on state responses and the number of COVID-19 cases that they're seeing in each state?
Yeah. NAR is monitoring what's going on in all the states. We have a conference call with all the state association executives every Monday morning. And we monitor the progress that's going on in those states, and we'll adjust it. But I have to say that we don't want to create a policy that one size fits all. And that's why we really worked hard for federal guidelines, not federal mandates, in relation to the essential services, so that you can determine at a state and local level what's appropriate for you. I have to say that we're very proud of our members that are adapting, and we're trying to adapt as an association as well. In our 112-year history, there has only been one board of directors meeting ever canceled at the National Association of Realtors, and we have a May meeting coming up. Okay, we're meeting virtually. We're not going to cancel our meeting, and we're going to have a virtual election of our officers, and we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we can move forward. We have a travel restriction of all our NAR officers and staff for any non-essential travel until July the 1st of this year. So I wanted to come to Sacramento. Initially, I was supposed to come to your meeting, and I offered to do so several weeks ago, but here we are. We adapted and morphed into this. So we wanted to provide a date that we thought was reasonable so that no one planned in-person meetings before then, and that we would employ these. So we're adapting just like our members, hopefully.
Great answer, Vince. Appreciate it. Just a couple more questions for you before we move on with the rest of our meeting. As realtors, do we have any insider information on access to gloves, booties, or masks besides some of the other retail locations? Have you heard of any good sources?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't. I can't even get them myself. I really can't. So I don't have. That's one thing that we don't have at the NAR store for you. I'm very sorry. Our members are going to have to be creative with that. Another good reason to use virtual tools wherever possible.
Yes, so we try to be miracle workers, but can't always do that, can we?
That's what I'm saying. And don't ask me for toilet paper, please.
The impossible find, right? The unicorn.
Yeah, really. That's the.
Just a slightly different twist on a question here, Vince. Can you speak to iBuyers and how NAR is responding to the iBuyers programs out there?
Okay, well, funny thing is that iBuying programs have virtually dried up because of this. You saw Zillow's announcement that they're pulling out of their markets for those things. But let me say this, that iBuying products are a business model, and NAR typically doesn't say one business model is better than another, or we don't advocate to do away with the business model, because some of our own members are offering these business models out there. But what we try to do, and everything we do at the National Association of Realtors, is enhance your value proposition with your customer. Let me just give you one example. Some of you are aware of our REACH program, where we're investing and creating relationships with technology companies that could better help enhance your experience with your client. And we invest in these companies not with the primary purpose to make money, but to help you succeed in your value proposition in competing with iBuying type programs, et cetera. So that's our focus, is to enhance your value as you compete forward with these things. And I'll give you one example. There's a company called Curbio that we're investing with. We invested in DocuSign, and you can see how helpful DocuSign is in enhancing the member experience and helping you do your business. But this Curbio is a company that helps you coordinate any advanced fix-up and staging of a property and creating value. I tell my clients, for every dollar you spend in pre-marketing, you're going to get $5 to $10 back on the other end in sales price. So isn't this the opportunity? They don't sell their house every day. This is sometimes a one in lifetime event for them. Isn't this the time where you should maximize your value? And so by using a company like Curbio, they will even front the money to do these projects, and they're billed at close of escrow. Okay, and so that is a great way of enhancing your value, because how much money are consumers leaving on the table with iBuying programs? We really don't know until a property is really marketed. So that's one way that you can express your value proposition, by maximizing their price for their property. And that's one example. So we don't advocate against them, but we advocate for you in providing what you can for your consumer.
Great answer. We certainly appreciate it. We're down to maybe just another minute or so. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of your questions out there. We certainly did our best, but we are on a limited time frame here this morning. Vince, did you have any closing remarks for us?
No, I just want to say that I'm proud. I've never been more proud to be a realtor. I know that these are difficult times for all of us, but you are doing such incredible things in your community and in your profession. And so we're here to help you support that. And I wish you all well. Be safe, because I want to see all of you at the end of all this. So thank you.
Thank you, Vince, for joining us today and for an informative presentation.
Thank you.
So we're going to move to our announcements. Please note that SAR offices will be closed until at least May 3rd as we assess the COVID-19 situation. All SAR staff will be working remotely and available via email and will respond to your inquiries in a timely manner. Please see video by SAR's Executive Committee for more information on how SAR events, meetings, classes are affected. Video and resources are available here at sacrealtor.org/COVID-19-plan-of-action. The 2021 Officer Director nominee applications are due on April 17th. You can apply online. The link is on SAR's main page, sacrealtor.org. SAR volunteer opportunities have been suspended until further notice. The April Rebuilding Together event is postponed. The Volunteer Coordinating Committee will continue planning for future volunteer events, so please stay tuned. All SAR regional meetings and tours are currently suspended through the end of April. For information on SAR tours and regional meetings, please visit sacrealtor.org/regional-meetings. To add your listing to a tour, log into MetroList. That's at prospector.metrolist.net. I know you all know that. You can choose to revise listing on the listing you wish to add to your tour. Choose caravan dates, select the appropriate tour, SAR tour for your listing, and click Save. And that's in the upper left corner. The Cantry Committee wants to thank everyone again who attended, participated in, or donated to our crab feed effort. We're thankful we were able to host all of you before all of this craziness began. With your help, we raised over $20,000 for the Salvation Army. Thank you so much. We do not want to mention that our mission to help the Salvation Army feed hungry Sacramentos is more pressing now than ever before. If you're interested in giving back, email Madison at mhall@sacrealtor.org. To join the committee, the Cantry Committee, in handing out food boxes on Monday, April 13th from 9:30 to 2:30 p.m. in Rancho Cordova. You can also visit volunteer.usawest.org for the full list of volunteer opportunities. Contact Madison for more information. Our YPN hopes everyone is safe and healthy during this weird time. We'd like to invite everyone to check out our updated annual partnership program. In lieu of single event sponsorships, we have decided to switch to an annual sponsorship system. Most of our partnerships opportunities have already been sold, but we still have some available. Special thanks to our 2020 partners, Diamond Edge Financial, Home Smart Eye Care Realty, Envoy Mortgage, My NHD, Finley Home Services, Beach and O'Neill, and Fidelity Home Warranty. For more information, please contact Madison, again at mhall@sacrealtor.org. Scholarship applications are in, and the trustees are hard working at figuring out how we'll host our typically face-to-face interviews. If you have a student who applied, please tell them to keep an eye on their email, as that is how we will be updating them as things move forward. Secondly, we are trying out selling last member standing spaces online for the first time via Eventbrite. To secure your chance at winning $1,000, please visit sacrealtor.org/lastmember and select the seat with the numbers you would like to purchase. Given the current climate, the method and date and time of our last member standing drawing is currently up in the air, so stay tuned for details on this, and contact Madison at mhall@sacrealtor.org. You should know that one by now with any questions that you may have. SAR's Education Committee is pleased to announce that they have fast-tracked their development of online classes. Staff is collaborating with Bay East and Contra Costa County AORs to bring you a variety of live and recorded free webinars. Through the generosity of a host of talented trainers and the desire of SAR and these local associations to support you during your trying times, we are able to offer these quality education courses for no cost. Please take advantage of please take advantage of it now, as this will change once we are able to resume our customary operations. The best way to stay abreast of the current offerings is at SAR's new education resource page. You can find the link in SAR's weekly docket, Monday education email, and this Zoom chat box. So with that, let's welcome Erin Teague, our fabulous Government Affairs Director, who will give us an update.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well from their home or a safe space. Needless to say, I think everyone knows that there has been a lot going on, and there are a lot of moving parts to the response for COVID-19. I know Vince mentioned a few of them this morning, and the executive committee will go over some of the pieces I'm going to talk about in more detail as well. But just to give you a broad scope of just a few things that we've been managing, there's local eviction moratoriums, emergency declarations, stay-at-home orders at the county and state level, relief packages, and also the one I think that's on everybody's mind right now is how essential worker is defined. I'm going to go over a few things this morning. Vince has gone over a lot of helpful information. The executive team is going to come and do an update as well. I just want to say thank you to Carter and Crystal, who have helped me manage pulling all this information together and putting it on the SAR website. So if you, Vince mentioned a swath of NAR links this morning, those are also on our webpage. So I encourage you to go look at the website on SAR because it has CAR resources, local resources, and as well as some of the NAR pieces. NAR has done a great job of providing the local association the different pieces that they've been doing as well. So I encourage you to look at it and then continue to check it, because we are trying to keep that updated as we try to keep up to date on everything as quickly as possible. So if something doesn't quite make sense, there's a lot of resources there for everyone to focus on. I think Vince really, all of my points on the NAR piece with the mortgage forbearance, and if you're owners of a multifamily property and you are taking advantage of, if you have a federally backed loan and you're taking advantage of those forbearance programs, one of the things I want to highlight and repeat that he mentioned, that borrowers from a federally backed loan that are taking advantage of the forbearance may not evict a tenant or charge late fees to the tenant for the duration of the forbearance period. So of the things that Vince mentioned, that's just something I want to highlight and reiterate for people. The state legislature. The state legislature announced this week that they are not going to be coming back on April 13th. It sounds like May 4th is the date I've heard floating around, but I expect that that will be a fluid date to see what's happening at this point. Really, I was looking at bill deadlines. It looks like May 29th is their next bill deadline. So that will be kind of an indicator of how they choose when they come back, how they will proceed. Governor Gavin Newsom has signaled that the budget process will be pretty streamlined, and really he wants to focus, as he should, on the basic necessities for the state during this response time. I've heard lots of discussion, but it hasn't been agreed on. The more that I start to hear, at one point they were discussing everyone would be able to, take up 5 bills. And then I heard that they would only be bills on public health or relief. I think the longer that they stay away on recess, then they will become more and more focused on the budget, which in reality is the one thing that they actually have to do by June 15th. which is a date known to many as the budget deadline. And as we know, if we don't have a budget in place by June 15th, then that's when lawmakers don't get paid, state bills don't get paid. A lot of things start to sort of roll downhill from there. So I know that everyone is very focused on having a budget in place on time that's focused on relief. Before the recess, they did pass a $1 billion relief package for California. It kind of mirrors what's happening at the federal level as well. As many of you know, the state moratorium went into effect, state eviction moratorium went into effect on March 16th, and currently will go through May 31st. I know Aaron's going to get into a little bit more detail on that, but I do want to mention that if you're a landlord or you have clients that have properties, on the website there is a Q&A for landlords that will hopefully be able to answer some of your specific questions. I'll discuss a little bit more on the local moratoriums in a minute. I also want to mention to everyone that the housing chairs for the housing committees at this Assemblymember Chu and Senator Wiener basically they don't think that the eviction moratorium currently goes far enough, and that they are looking for a flat out ban on evictions. SB 939 by Wiener is a bill that would prohibit the eviction of tenants for commercial property, and that would include businesses, nonprofits, organizations during the state of emergency. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on and see how it goes through. Assemblymember Chu had mentioned that he was going to have a bill as well, but currently there's no language on that yet. So that looks like it would be what's called a gut and amend bill, where they take an old bill and take the language out and insert the new bill. I haven't seen anything on that yet. In the news this morning, I think it came through yesterday, the Judicial Council put a halt on eviction and foreclosures as well. I think now is the time to start the conversation about everything in place so far is indicating that tenants don't have to pay rents right now and they cannot be evicted for that. But the reality is that we need to start discussing, and Vince also spoke to this as well, we have to make sure that the longer we're putting an undue burden on one side, and it's very lopsided. And so how are we going to provide the relief for those property owners over the term of this and have that conversation? And so that's something that the government relations team is focusing on moving forward and talking to local leaders about as well. So that's just a little bit of a broad overview of conversations that are happening at the state level. For the local eviction moratoriums, because there's a statewide eviction moratorium in place, that gives a majority of the guidance. We have a few locals that local ordinances in place that have more detail than the state eviction moratorium put into place. So it's important that if you have questions about how does the local ordinance versus the state ordinance work and what applies to me, I encourage you to please go to the website where we've put all the language for every single local jurisdiction that has put into place a local eviction moratorium. There's a few steps in most of those where the tenant has to provide notice to the landlord. They have to provide documentation, and so jurisdictions such as West Sacramento, City of Sacramento, in the future it's going to be the County of Sacramento. There's some forms online that people need to look at, and so I just guide you to that website for those documents to take a look at it to help you understand it better. And if, again, as always, if you have more questions, please feel free to reach out to Carter and myself. We're trying to get back to people as quickly as possible. So one of the pieces that when we started to realize that there was movement on these local jurisdictions trying to move their own eviction moratoriums forward, we took a look at the political landscape to see what was happening. And one of the pieces that, while these eviction moratoriums are not ideal for our members and our clients, we really had to focus on what are the things that need to be in the language to provide landlords some guidance for tenants and pieces of the pie to keep this moving, so that we know that this is not a rental forgiveness program. This is, we are going to delay payment. So some of the pieces that we were able, in language that we were able to get inserted into a lot of these local jurisdictions were, while they all turned out a little bit differently and a little bit nuanced, we were successful in most of those areas to be able to get into the findings that nothing in the ordinance waives the tenant's obligation to pay rent back once the ordinance is no longer effective. We encouraged language to define what a covered reason for delay payment means. You know, was the tenant sick with COVID-19? Were they caring for someone or a household member that was sick? Did they experience layoffs, loss of hours due to the state of the emergency? Was the tenant missing work to care for a homebound school-age child? And then we also put in some language that in order for tenants to take advantage of this protection, they had to do a couple things as well that I mentioned. They had to notify the landlord in writing, and most of the jurisdictions where this language is in place, I'll guide you to the website again, that there's a form on the website that you can give to your tenants. They had to provide the landlord with verifiable documentation, and then they also had to pay the portion of the rent that they're able to pay. And that's something, you know, obviously Vince mentioned that's something you can work out on a case-by-case basis, but we really wanted to make sure that there were some guiding principles with this. It wasn't just something that could be left out there for interpretation. Also, we made sure that there was a notice in there that nothing in this ordinance relieves the tenant from the liability of unpaid rent after the expiration of the ordinance. And then also, in most of the jurisdictions, we were able to get in a 120-day payback period, so that 120 days after the expiration of the government's executive order N2820, that there's a 120-day period of additional protection for tenants where they need to pay back the rent that is owed. So those are just some of the pieces. Another thing to mention, a lot of jurisdictions did, and I know that SMUD came out as well as PG&E, that during this time, the local utilities will not be turning off any utilities during the emergency declaration. Okay. So now for the fun part that everybody's been waiting for, the definition of essential worker. Vince did a great job describing at the federal level that CISA released, which stands for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. Say that 10 times fast. And they were successful to get real estate added to that list. The important part to remember about that list is it's a guiding principle to help guide state officials and local elected officials. And while Newsom's executive order does reference that CISA list, the County of Sacramento does not. And so currently we are working with the county diligently to try to make sure and make the case of why it is so important that we are part of this definition and what that means for our members and what that means and the safety precaution and best practices that our members will follow if we are added to this list. The current stay-home order for the County of Sacramento expires today, and so we are working diligently to make sure that when that release of a new order or order is updated, however that comes forward, we will be included in that. And as soon as possible, as soon as I know it, I will let everyone else know it, and we will have some guiding principles and documentation and helpful resources for members as well. So I was hoping that we would have more information before this call today, but we will just, I'm asking everyone to hang tight. I know that everyone is nervous and wants to get back to work, and staff truly understands what this means for all of you and your businesses. But we want to stress the importance that, especially if we are included to that list of the county's definition, it is going to be so important of us to set a good example so that we are not the bad example of being included on this list and what that means. A few industries, such as the construction industry, has in the Los Angeles area has been put in under great scrutiny because they are part of this list. I know that in San Francisco, they've banned construction. So as easily as this can be given to us, it can also be taken away. And so I just want to impress on everyone that it will be really important to follow those best practices that have been laid out on how to conduct business moving forward during these emergency declarations. So I think that wraps up most of my pieces. Again, I'll reiterate to check out the website as much as possible. There's been a lot of helpful information out there. Just a little working from home humor. I overheard for as many times as I said moratorium today, I heard my oldest telling my youngest that there's a moratorium on tape, a moratorium on markers, and a moratorium on glue. And that means you can't use it. So apparently she's listening to something I'm saying, and it's made an impression. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. So at this time, the executive committee will give you guys an update. First, we'll provide some updates and then we'll take some questions and answers via Zoom from our members. And if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A feature so that we can do our best to address your concerns once we have given our update. Before I hand things over to Dave, I want to reiterate something you have heard from SAR and in our executive committee updates many times in the past. You also just heard it from Erin, and you just heard it from Vince Malta. Regardless of what other counties allow, in Sacramento, real estate remains non-essential. It is critically important that SAR members heed to our local directive and do not show property, do not engage clients, fellow realtors, or the public in person. We will certainly let you know if our Sacramento County Department of Public Health deems we realtors can safely operate in any capacity. Regardless of what we are permitted to do in the future, for now, please stay at home. Continue to find ways to virtually engage your clients. Our association is top priority. Our top priority is health and safety for our members and our community. Additional information on activities you should and should not do are available in a document entitled Guidelines for Real Estate Best Practices During COVID-19 at carcovidupdates.org. And with that, I will turn you over to Dave. Dave Tanner, are you there?
Yes, as soon as I remember to unmute. Thank you, Judy. And I'll have some comments. First, as was mentioned before, association operations will remain virtual until at least May 3rd. We'd hope to return to work here at 2003 Howe Avenue sooner, of course, but the health and safety of our staff and our members is our #1 priority. I'm pleased to report that our staff transition to working from home was relatively smooth while still maintaining a high level of service to our members. We've had people come in and be able to pick up new lock boxes. They did the processing of it online, and then staff was here and put them in a bag and left them outside when the individual arrived. So we had no face-to-face contact, but they were able to pick those up. Also, we have been shipping orders out of the store on pretty much a daily basis. You can order any items that you need online, and the store will be happy to make that work for you. Now I want to let you know of a few state association updates. It's a little known fact that CAR has 2 legal hotlines, one for salesperson and one for brokers. The broker line has priority and generally has very little wait time. If you are a salesperson or broker associate, you might approach your broker first with questions. And if your broker is unable to provide you with the answer, then your broker can call on the broker line and get much faster response. CAR is preparing to release a new economic forecast in the next couple of days based on projected economic impact of COVID-19. A key point that will be in the forecast is that in the past SARS and MERS epidemics, the real estate market rebound took a few months, not years. CAR is projecting a quick recovery once this emergency is over. Also, I know many of you are using Zoom for various meetings, including this update. I'm sure that many of you may have heard that Zoom security can be an issue if the meeting host has not implemented a few precautionary measures. Zoom bombing, much like photo bombing, entering a Zoom meeting without authority is a federal crime. CAR has released some Zoom best practices for members to see. So with that, I will pass on to Denise.
Good morning, everybody. I've got some more information about new CAR forms. CAR has provided more new forms that are now available in the zip form library. We've previously mentioned a couple times that CAR created several new forms. Those are Form CVA, the Coronavirus Addendum or Amendment, and Form NUCC, the Notice of Unforeseen Coronavirus Circumstances. Since our update last week, CAR has released two new forms. The first one is Form RLACAA, the Listing Agreement Coronavirus Addendum or Amendment. This form is an addendum to the residential listing agreement and allows sellers and listing brokers to establish what, if any, access to the property the seller will allow during the term of the listing. Sorry, noise in the background. This includes allowing a seller to designate upfront if they will allow any in-person showings, and if so, under what conditions. It also allows them to designate what service providers they will allow access to the property, like photographers, appraisers, home inspectors, etc. A broker should have this form completed by the seller on every listed property. The second one is Form PEAD, the Coronavirus Property Entry and Declaration. This form serves to inform sellers, buyers, and any agent or other service provider of the health risk associated with entering a property and gain acknowledgements from all parties of best practices for accessing properties and sanitizing the property before and after access. A broker should not allow anyone to enter a listed property unless the seller and all persons intended to enter have executed this form. On Monday, CAR released two additional forms in PDF version on the COVID website. They should be in zip forms by Wednesday. The first one is Form NTAP, Notice of Tenant of Ability to Pay Rent, designed for landlords to notify tenants of the tenant's requirement to provide the landlord notice proof that the tenant is unable to pay rent due to a COVID-19 related hardship. Under current state law, to be effective, the tenant must provide notice not later than 7 days after the rent is due. For the April 1st rent, that notice must be made by April 7th. The second is Form RPD, Rent Payment Delay, to document the terms of late payment noticed by the tenant and describes the repayment agreement for the postponed rent due to a COVID-19 related hardship. CAR also offers live and pre-recorded webinars on proper use of these new forms, so please be sure to look for those on their website, which is carcovidupdates.org. And now we'll pass it on to our President-elect, Kelly Swain.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for standing here with us. We appreciate your time. Want to make sure that we're touching on something really important here. During our last several updates, we have discussed at length the need to be on the lookout for scams. I'm going to say that again because we think it's really important. We need to be on the lookout for scams. We've heard reports from our members of several types of scams that are targeting homeowners, they're targeting realtors and the general public. We've heard that there are some fee-based consultants out there who claim they can help realtors apply for many of the federal relief programs. Please don't fall for these scams and do not pay an upfront fee. Consult your financial institution or refer to many of the materials that NAR and CAR have published to help our members. CAR has also established a helpline for our membership to offer assistance to apply for the various relief mechanisms that are in place. The phone number is 213-351-8450. It's open Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Again, that phone number is 213-351-8450. Please refer to those resources for help and never provide a consultant your personal or banking information. Our members have received reports, we've mentioned this a couple of times, of people who are offering, companies who are offering to help people submit an application to the county tax assessor to reduce their property's tax assessment. Please be aware that this is misleading. It's a predatory solicitation for a fee-based service that will very likely be a fruitless attempt at reducing your property taxes. Also, as more homeowners are seeking mortgage payment relief, we may see a new crop of fee-based loan modification scammers out there who are going to collect a fee for helping facilitate a loan modification, and then they're going to disappear. Again, please remember and make sure you're informing your clients that it's illegal in California for any person or company to charge an upfront fee for any type of loan modification service. It's also worth noting that there have been TV news stories reporting fake COVID-19 testing centers. These scammers are dressed up in protective gear and they set up a fake drive-through testing site in parking lots. They have their victims fill out a form with personal health information or financial information, swab test, and then they take off with your information. Please be hyper vigilant to verify the credentials of any testing site that you encounter. As a reminder, and as you all know, lending and financial institutions are still operational as essential businesses. However, we are seeing volatility in loan programs. We mentioned last week that some sources of down payment assistance and homebuyer grants have been temporarily discontinued. We've heard from our SAR affiliate loan officers that most funding sources for jumbo loans have been suspended. The current high balance conforming loan limit in Sacramento County is $569,250. Jumbo loans, which are amounts over that, again, $569,250, are becoming much more difficult for lenders to underwrite as the back-end investors are pulling out of this market segment. If you have a client obtaining a loan over $569,250, please talk to your loan officer and clients immediately to see how this might affect your transactions. Thanks for your time, and now on to Erin Stump.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. This is Erin Stump, your Secretary Treasurer, not to be confused with Erin Teague, the rock star government affairs director that we have. Most of my updates are going to be a little bit redundant with what Erin already updated, but I just got to give kudos to Erin, Carter Nelson, Dave Tanner, and so many members of our SAR staff. They've all done such an amazing job. From this seat, I get a really good view of how all of our staff and all of our elected leadership here are doing such an amazing job to represent not only our members' interests, but the interests of the public in all that's going on right now. So I just got to tell you that I hope you guys all appreciate the value that SAR brings, the membership that you guys all enjoy here. If we're not proving to you how relevant our association is right now, I don't know what else we could do for you. Our staff, they're just rocking the house right now. So I just got to give a shout out and just basically kind of reiterate some of the things that Erin Teague mentioned already. We've given you so many updates already about temporary moratorium on tenant evictions. There are so many overlying ordinances and policies. The interplay between all of them is really complex. Erin has mentioned now that not only does the city of Sacramento, the city of Elk Grove, the city of West Sacramento, they all have their own local eviction moratorium ordinances. Governor Newsom last week enacted a 60-day delay in the time that a tenant has to respond to an eviction if they're suffering a COVID-19 related hardship. Just yesterday, again, this is all so fluid, it all changes so rapidly. Yesterday afternoon, the Judicial Council of California, which is the policy-making body for the California court system, met. They adopted an emergency court rule that effectively stops all evictions, other than those necessary to protect public health and safety for the duration of the COVID-19 emergency. This rule is applicable to all courts and to all eviction cases, whether they are based on a tenant's missed rent payment or any other reason. This new court rule will apply until 90 days after the governor lifts the state of emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic, or until it's amended or repealed by the Judicial Council. So this is likely to be in place for quite a while. Again, we've got all these overlying eviction moratorium ordinances. Last week we mentioned that the County Board of Supervisors here in Sacramento is going to meet and possibly enact their own eviction moratorium ordinance. They indeed did that. So on April 1st, they met, they passed a residential eviction moratorium. It goes into effect in 30 days and applies for May's rent. Also, I think Vince Malta mentioned this as well, embedded in the CARES Act, the federal government enacted an 120-day moratorium on evictions for 1 to 4 unit residential properties that are financed with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, which is FHA, USDA, or VA financing. If you don't know if you've got one of those loans, you should know if you got an FHA loan at the time you purchased the property, VA loan or USDA. Those are all very, very specific kind of niche programs. Not many homeowners will know if they have a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac loan. Fannie and Freddie both have lookup tools online. We will link these at sacrealtor.org, but I will also tell you what the URLs are here now. So to look up to see if you have a Fannie Mae loan, that URL is www.knowyouroptions.com/loan lookup. KNOWYOUR.com/LOANLOOKUP. So again, that'll be online at sacrealtor.org. Freddie Mac's loan lookup, this is a funky URL, www.freddiemac.com/loan lookup. Again, www.freddiemac.com/LOANLOOKUP. So again, please refer to sacrealtor.org. There is a wealth of information there for you to check out. Again, the ordinances are all very confusing. They all have many similarities, thanks to SAR staff helping our local electeds understand that there needs to be some consistency between these ordinances. But again, they're all different in some ways. And then of course we have the interplay between what has been enacted by Governor Newsom at the state and now the Judicial Council across the state affecting all evictions. So please, if you're in doubt about how any of these ordinances affect your properties or properties of your clients, Aaron mentioned that there are some Q&As online. You could also try to reach out to the CAR legal hotline, or better yet, probably consult an attorney. These are all very complex rules that, I don't know in unique situations how we might interpret them. So again, consulting an attorney is probably a really good idea. Please do not give your clients legal advice. I cannot emphasize enough, that is not something you want to be doing. Aaron also mentioned that the California legislature is still out on their extended break. They're not going to be resuming on April 13th. Last week it was announced that they'll remain on break until at least May 4th with some changes to their legislative timeframes and things like that. So anyway, and again, CAR has canceled its legislative day, which is a bummer, but the legislature is not even going to be back in session by the time we would have had our legislative date anyway. So anyway, with that, I will turn it back over to our amazing President Judy Covington to wrap up the updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Erin. So as you know, and Vince Malta also mentioned it last week when we updated, the president signed the CARES Act, and that's the $2.2 trillion federal stimulus package. NAR worked tirelessly to advocate for financial relief for our realtor independent contractors. Vince also talked about that as well. And I'm pleased to share with you that there are multiple provisions in the bill that will help realtors, including the pandemic unemployment insurance, which is called PUI, which allows independent contractors the ability to file for unemployment-like benefits. If you're looking to apply for this unemployment benefit, it will be administered by the California EDD. And that EDD stands for Employment Development Department. The EDD is not ready to accept these applications yet, so do not submit one until they announce they are ready. If you apply now, you will be rejected as ineligible. Then later, when EDD can't accept these applications and you file, the system may note that you're ineligible and reject your now valid applications. So please be patient and wait until the state can get ready. Payroll Payment Protection, which is using the acronym PPP, is a loan program that, in addition to employees, can provide payments to independent contractors. To the extent that they are used to replace payroll expenses, the loans can be forgiven. The amount of the payments will be based on the 1099 income for the same period of the previous year. CAR will have webinars available later this week on both the PUI and PPP programs. Check the schedule at carcovidupdates.org. Another relief program is direct cash payment for people with incomes below the defined threshold. You will receive cash payments from the federal government in the amount of $1,200 per adult, plus $500 for each dependent child under the age of 18. You may also take advantage of no penalty for early retirement account withdrawals of up to $100,000 from IRAs or your 401ks. There are also several options to provide relief to brokerages, such as Paycheck Protection Program loans, Economic Injury Disaster loans, and Small Business Administration Express Bridge loans. Please refer to the CAR website for additional information. We will have these linked at sacrealtor.org. Also, as Kelly mentioned, CAR has established a hotline to help members apply for the relief. And again, that number is 213-351-8450. It's open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. Again, the number is 213-351-8450. So at this time, we'll open it up to Q&As from our Zoom participants.
Okay, Judy, this is Dave. What I want to do is jump in and answer two of the questions that I've seen come up there. The first one had to do with the forms that we referenced. We referenced the two new forms that came out to do with tenants. They were the NTAP, Notice of Tenant of Ability to Pay Rent. So NTAP, the other one is RPD, the Rent Payment Delay. These forms are not yet available in zip forms. You can go to carcovidupdate.org and you can click on the tab there for new forms and you can download a PDF version of those. They hope to have them available to you in zip forms not later than tomorrow. So at the present time, you'll have to work with the PDF version until you can get the zip form version online probably tomorrow. The other question I wanted to respond to is a question about what's happening with the County Health Directive for Sacramento County. The directive they originally issued says it expires at 11:59 p.m. tonight. We expect that, and I actually expected it would be before this time, but we expect that sometime during the day today, they will come up with a new directive. I anticipate that's probably going to run through the end of the month. And in that new directive, we have reason to believe that it is probably going to specify that real estate is an essential service, but I also believe that there are going to be restrictions on that. And so other than just the common sense restrictions like Vince mentioned earlier, you don't want to die for a commission. That's the bottom line. So as soon as that gets released by the county, we'll be releasing both a video and an online text version by email, letting you know what the restrictions are they specify and the best practices to work under, assuming that we do become an essential service in Sacramento County.
Dave, there were a couple other questions maybe you want to touch base with for our membership. There was talk about whether or not SAR and or MetroList should be the ones to restrict showings and lockbox access. I know you've mentioned this and you've addressed this in previous recordings we've posted to Facebook, but can you just touch on that question again for our membership?
Yeah, very, very simple process. SAR has no contract with the seller. MetroList has no contract with the seller. It's the responsibility of listing brokers to keep the status of their listings current in MetroList. So if you look at the forms that came out, the form that we referenced about the amendment to the listing agreement, if you have that form and you give it to your seller in that form will designate who they want to have access to the property if they want no one to have access to the property. Once your seller has completed that addendum to your listing agreement, then you should go into MetroList and update the status in MetroList based upon the instructions you've received from the seller.
Thanks, Dave. Kind of along those lines, we had a question about what we're supposed to do for properties where the sellers are unwilling to accept an offer from a buyer who has not physically been in the home.
And I guess you don't get to buy their house. Right, sellers own the property. They can sell it to anybody they want to. They can have whatever rules they want. Our MLS rules restrict what the broker can do, but we can't write a rule that restricts what the seller can do. They're not subject to MetroList rules. They're not subject to the Code of Ethics. They can do anything they want to do. Now, if your seller becomes what you consider to be unreasonable, you can always negotiate canceling the listing agreement with them. But we have no authority to do anything about what the seller decides they want to do regarding the sale of their property.
Thanks, Dave. As far as we had a question about people completing inspections up front to put a listing on the market, first and foremost, obviously talk to your broker about the best way to handle that situation. But if you have anything more to add there, Dave? Just
that that's been my practice for 40 years. You do your listings up front. How can you sell the house until you know what things are going to cost you to fix? So I think you should always be doing that. But again, it goes back to how the seller revises the listing agreement, whoever they say can enter the property. When you took the listing, if you took the listing prior to the first stay-at-home order that came out, when you took that listing, the listing says that you're authorizing, the seller's authorizing people to use the lockbox to have access to the property. The stay-at-home order was a complete change in material circumstances. What was anticipated at the time they signed the original listing is no longer a position that you can rely on. You need to go back with the RLA-CAA form, have the seller fill that out completely. That specifies exactly who they're authorizing to enter the property, if anyone at all. And whatever they say in that agreement, that's the terms that you have to live with.
Thank you, Dave. I think the rest of those, have you heard anything about how long these COVID-19 forms are going to remain in zip forms past this current situation?
Well, I'm sure that they will be in zip forms for a reasonable period of time after the shelter-in-place order is lifted. I'm hoping that we're seeing that shelter-in-place order lifted in the foreseeable future. I'm hoping to be playing softball in June, so.
Great, thank you. We've still got a bunch of questions pouring in, but given that it's after 10:30 right now, I think we're sure we're getting any final messages and wrapping up. President Judy, Dave, anyone else on the exec team here have anything more to add?
I just want to thank everybody for attending this meeting. I especially want to thank our executive team, Aaron Teague, and all of our staff for the time and effort that they put in to making this happen. Our next main meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 5th. We'll keep you updated on Facebook and on our website. So keep an eye out on both of them. And again, thank you very much for attending, and stay in and have a good day. Thanks.
Stay safe, everyone. This will end.